Welcome, everybody. I'm pleased to have with me at the moment Dr. Ina Khazan, who is an expert in both biofeedback techniques and mindfulness practices. She's author of a book on precisely this topic, Biofeedback and Mindfulness in Everyday Life, Proven Solutions for Improving Your Health and Performance. And she's also the president at the moment of the Institute for Meditation and Psychotherapy, which I, Ronald Siegel, am also part of, and she is on the faculty of Harvard Medical School as a psychiatrist. And we're going to talk about biofeedback and mindfulness. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Ron.
And my first question for you is, as an expert in biofeedback, as well as in mindfulness, how do the two go together? Many biofeedback interventions seem to be about gaining control over our neurology or our physiology, while mindfulness practices typically are about accepting whatever's occurring in the moment, learning how to be with experience, whether it's pleasant experience or aversive experiences. So I'm wondering, how do you put these practices together? And in particular, are there moments or situations in which they seem to be pulling in opposite directions and other moments in which they're synergistic? How do the two relate to one another?
You're absolutely right, Ron. At first glance, biofeedback and mindfulness appear to be on the opposite sides of the spectrum from each other. Biofeedback is all about change, and mindfulness is all about staying in the present and letting things be as they are. However, if we were to look a bit deeper, it turns out that biofeedback and mindfulness are actually perfect complements for each other. It's true, biofeedback is about making changes, but the best way to make changes is to do so mindfully while focusing on what is under our control, which is our actions, rather than unsuccessful attempts to change what is not under our control, which is our thoughts and feelings. So mindfulness allows us to tell the difference between what is and what is not under our control, and then focus on mindfully changing what we can. And this is where biofeedback comes in helping us make those mindful changes. Mindfulness, the way it is used in our Western society for the purposes of improving health and well-being, has a goal of making helpful, mindful changes through letting go of what is not under our control, and again, focusing on what is. And this is where biofeedback can come in by enabling us to increase our awareness of our internal states, and enabling us to make mindful changes through that clear and precise information about those internal states, strengthening our physiological ability to self-regulate in the moment of challenge, and providing us with helpful ways to respond to situations that are not under our control, or thoughts and feelings that are not under our control. So fundamentally, the goals of biofeedback and mindfulness are the same. They achieve those goals by providing the balance between goal-directed action and letting go. There is a Buddhist story called The Parable of the Lute, which illustrates the synergy between goal-directed action and letting go really beautifully. The story is about Sona, a son of a businessman in ancient India, who decided that he would like to achieve enlightenment. So he gave up his earthly possessions, and he went off to to meditate and attempt to find enlightenment. And he was meditating and trying really hard and doing everything that he could possibly do, and he wasn't getting where he wanted to go. So he sought out the Buddha, and he asked the Buddha, "Help me, help me figure out how to achieve enlightenment." Sona happened to be a skilled lute player, and so the Buddha asked him, "Sona, when your lute is tuned very weakly, when the strings are not very tight at all, can you play it well?" No, I can't." "And what happens, if the lute strings are tuned very tightly? What happens then? Can you play it well?" No, it doesn't sound very good then either." "So what happens if the strings of the lute are tuned just right, not too tight, and not too loose? What happens then?" "Well, then I can play it really well. That's when it sounds best." So there you go. There is that middle way, the way that we achieve a synergy between goal-directed action and letting go, just like the strings of a lute. that are
Yeah.
not too loose and not too tight.
It occurs to me that this is the same tension that we see in dialectical behavior therapy, where, Marshall Linehan identified the central dialectic is between the wish for change and acceptance.
Exactly. Yes, and we are able to achieve change through acceptance, right? So through a mindful awareness, we're able to create change.
Might you share with us a clinical example where the two work together?
Absolutely. Let's take an example of somebody who suffers from chronic headaches. Pain is incredibly aversive. It often creates a situation where people feel like they cannot move on with their lives. They can't function, they can't work, they can't do the things that they enjoy, and all they want to do is get rid of the pain. So one of my clients, came to me in that particular situation, and all he wanted to do was just to feel better. I was doing biofeedback. This is what he was particularly interested in. His headaches were migraine headaches, and one of the more researched biofeedback interventions for migraines is thermal biofeedback, or teaching people how to raise the temperature of their fingers. So this is what we started doing. I hooked up, the thermometer to his fingers, and his fingers were indeed quite cold. The idea was, right, let's raise your finger temperature, and that's going to help with the pain. So he tried really hard, and with biofeedback, I can see what's going on internally, right on the screen in front of me. He wasn't looking at the screen at the time, but I was. So I could, as he was trying, I could see the finger temperature going down and down and down and down and down, and I was getting incredibly stressed out. After a few minutes, when I asked him, "How are things going?" he said, I don't think this is working very well. I'm just feeling colder and colder." So I asked him, tell me what's happening. What is your experience right now? And he said, well, I'm trying to warm up my hands. I'm trying to relax. I'm trying to, think happy thoughts, and I'm trying to make, the idea of pain go away. This is where I asked him, well, what do you think would happen if you just allowed all of that to be? What if you gave your body permission to do whatever it's going to do in this moment, and just observed, observe the sensations in your fingers, observe the sensations of your breath, observe the sensations of your heart rate. What if you allowed your breath to just, to slow down naturally, and allow yourself just to observe whatever is happening, whatever changes happen. Give your body permission to not increase temperature, but rather just see what happens. And that's what he did. He allowed his experience to be as it was, and focused his attention on his breath. And the finger temperature started going up and up and up and up and up and up, until it eventually increased quite significantly. So with training, this is not something that happens in one session, but with training and a few other biofeedback related interventions, he learned to increase his finger temperature consistently to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the so-called criterion to which we need to train. And he did that without a struggle. He did that through mindful change. He did that without trying to make his pain go away. His focus was not on the pain. His focus was on the present moment. And his headaches got significantly better. And most importantly, he became able to live the kind of life that was most important to him, the kind of life that he wanted to live.
Yeah, and in his particular dialectic, at the beginning, he was unbalanced in the direction of trying too hard to change. And mindfulness practice is what allowed him to relax that sufficiently so he actually could change.
Exactly. That is exactly what happened. Yes, he found the middle way from the extreme.
So, I know for myself as a clinician who finds biofeedback fascinating, but doesn't have a lot of equipment and doesn't have a lot of formal training in it, do you have any tips in our last few minutes about kind of biofeedback-like interventions that we clinicians who don't have the expertise and the equipment could nonetheless integrate into our practices?
Absolutely. I might call this something like psychophysiologically informed mindfulness, where we take what we know, from the field of biofeedback and integrate it into our practice of mindfulness without having devices or gadgets. One particular skill that's helpful to integrate is something called heart rate variability biofeedback. Very briefly, heart rate variability is the way in which our heart rate changes moment to moment. So the time that passes from heartbeat to heartbeat is constantly changing, and that's a good thing. We want more of that. Greater heart rate variability is associated with greater self-regulation, reduction in symptoms of things like headaches and chronic pain and anxiety and depression and other medically related disorders. It improves our ability to meet challenges and just do our best in a variety of different situations. Typically, with biofeedback equipment, we can see what happens to heart rate variability together with the breath. Our breath drives our heart rate, and we can figure out a way to pace someone's breathing in a way that increases their heart rate variability to its maximum. Now, without using the equipment, we know that breathing at 6 breaths per minute is what allows us to achieve that optimal heart rate variability. 6 breaths per minute is close enough for most people. Without, if we have the ability to determine that breathing rate precisely, that's helpful. But in a situation when we can't, 6 breaths per minute is good enough. So the way that we might do that breathing practice is to breathe in to the count of 4 and breathe out to the count of 6. So that's 10 seconds per breath, or 6 breaths per minute. And doing so mindfully will allow us to reap the benefits of both practices, where we are practicing mindfulness of the breath while allowing our breath to follow that 4 in, 6 out pace, which will also train our autonomic nervous system to regulate itself and increase our heart rate variability in order to give us the benefit of that optimal training for self-regulation and improvement of health and well-being.
So as a closing treat, might you lead us all in this for just 30 seconds or a minute?
Absolutely, yes. So what you might do is just take a normal size, comfortable breath in, as if you're smelling a flower. There's no need for particularly big or deep breath, just normal size while you're counting to 4. And breathe out slowly to the count of 6. Breathe in and out. And in and out. One more time. And out. Something like that.
Thank you very much. I'm already having a better afternoon. So thank you so much for sharing your insights into the how biofeedback and mindfulness practices can be synergistic.
You are most welcome.